What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the channel. My name is Michael and I hope you are having an awesome day. You guys already know what time it is. It's Sabaton history time. It's been a while since I've done some Sabaton history on this channel, but guess what? We are doing Sabaton history. We are learning today about the 1527 sack of Rome, the last stand, episode 44. Be sure to drop a like, be sure to subscribe, stay tuned, because guess what? More Sabaton to come. Whoop, whoop.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Pat Lionheart, and I'm here to talk about the Crusades.
I love his outfit. Absolutely amazing. Just fits the character. It's just great. Let's keep it and roll with it.
They were so exciting times, and I can't imagine the last stand in the Crusader times. It was like so damn cool to be a Crusader at that time. Crusades, they are the most important thing in Sabaton life. Crusaders,
I love it.
Crusades.
I love it.
The Crusades.
Crusades.
And
yes.
Crusades.
Crusades.
We're gonna do more Crusades.
Crusades.
Hey, did you know that the Knights of the Templar Order might have founded Switzerland? When Pope Clement V declared in the early 1300s that all Templar knights were heretics and should be killed, many of them fled France, taking their huge...
Okay, right off the bat, we're 45 seconds in. Now to explain the symbolism of the Knight's cross, the symbol of the Crusades that they were dropping in the beginning when he was saying Crusades 15 million times. Interesting.
treasury with them. The Templars, shrewd bankers, may have brought their treasure and their military expertise to a loose confederation of poor farmers just over the French border. Well, okay, that may actually be just a myth. But what if it was true, right? I mean, look at the Swiss flag. Quite similar to the Templars' cross if you swap the colors, right? Just saying. I will get back to factual history now. Over 200 years later, too. Rome, November 1523. The whole Vatican seemed like one big building site, trying to reinvent itself with classical palaces and basilicas. The city was quite cosmopolitan, where pilgrims and travelers mingled with people from all over Europe. But the mood just now was tense. Hushed voices spoke of the ongoing deadlock within the conclave of cardinals, trying to choose a new pope. Busy feet shuffled under the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo's new ceiling frescoes barely got any attention. Wow. So focused was everyone on the decision at hand. Several seemingly suitable cardinals were proposed, but none could win, and it looked like it would all come down to the two candidates supported by the two great powers in the European world. Okay, for centuries, Italy and the Vatican had been the real-life chessboard for the ambitions of kings. By now, a new crisis was developing between Francis I of France and Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Charles was pretty much the most powerful ruler in Europe since the days of Charlemagne 700 years earlier, and that certainly went to his head. He saw himself not only as divinely appointed ruler, but as the one and only Christian ruler of Europe, whose duty it was to dominate France and then unite Christendom under his banner. Giulio de' Medici was the papal candidate Charles supported, and on November 16th, he was elected and became Pope Clement VII. Everything seemed perfect, but as it would soon turn out, Clement VII's papacy would actually be one of the worst in history, and this is really saying something, but it began by Clement trying to be a good pope.
All right, hold up. Just want to get into this. This is groundbreaking. It all started by him trying to be a good pope. Isn't your job to be a good pope? Anyways, it's cool to see that Sabaton, at least the Sabaton that I've seen, has been a little bit more focused on World War II, World War I, but now we're getting some more history. I love that aspect. You get to learn and you get to listen to some heavy metal, rock and roll action. Such a good combo.
Pope Leo X, Clement's predecessor, had been very popular in the Italian peninsula, and for a simple reason. He behaved less like a pope and more like an old Roman emperor. He was a lavish spender and a playboy who threw wild parties and extravagant banquets. Unlike Leo, Clement wanted to reign with scholars and clerics, with fasts and actual religious obligations. Surprisingly, this made him deeply unpopular with the clergy in Rome. Now this was a problem, but he still had the emperor on his side, right? I mean, all he had to do was not agitate his royal benefactor, which he promptly did. Charles was fighting a war against France in northern Italy, and rumors reached his ears that Clement had been secretly in contact with the cities of Venice and Milan to form a defensive pact with Rome in case things went bad for the Holy Roman Empire. Charles was a bit irritated by that backdoor dealing, but okay, fair enough, plans for the future, right? Okay, he understood. But when secret peace negotiations between Clement and France were suddenly not so secret anymore, Charles was furious. This was outright treason. Fuming with anger, he even proclaimed that this Martin Luther guy in all the news actually might have had a point with his hatred for the papacy. Remember, we are right at the beginning of the Reformation, and Luther had only been condemned as an outlaw by Charles 2 years ago.
Wow.
Okay. After the decisive Battle of Pavia in 1525, where the French received a complete mauling by the imperial forces, with Francis even being captured, Charles gave his commander in Italy, Constable Bourbon, another task. With 5,000 Spanish troops, he should go south and have a little chat with the Pope. But Georg von Frundsberg, the famous German military commander, would rather see Clement hanged for his treachery, and he himself raised over 10,000 German Landsknechte out of his own pocket. And while the Spaniards were relatively disciplined, the Landsknechte were emphatically not. Soldiers for hire, loyal only to their pay, and many won over by Martin Luther's words, they were all too eager to get their hands on the wealth of the Catholic Church.
You gotta appreciate the fact of like what's going on, and this is tying back into the history of so many things, and we're seeing this setup, and it's already like prominent, and it's already there. Like, how cool is that?
In the home of Christianity, the seed of power is in danger. There's a foe of 1,000 souls. They've been abandoned by the lords. The fall from grace will pave their path to the nation.
Early 1527, Bourbon's 5,000 Spanish and Frundsberg's 10,000 Germans linked up with other mercenaries eager for loot. But then Frundsberg suffered a stroke and returned north. Now Bourbon, stranded in Italy and trying to control both companies for which he didn't really have the money, was left with only one option: move swiftly forward and loot Rome.
Wow.
So by May the 5th, around 20,000 Imperials were knocking on Rome's front door, the Spirito Gate. Bourbon himself, wearing a bright white cloak over his armor, ordered his troops to build ladders and scale the walls. But they were fired upon by arquebusiers and light artillery and took heavy losses. See, fortified cities could not be easily stormed at the time, not without heavy artillery, and Bourbon's army had none. And while the garrison of Rome defended its walls, Pope Clement could still rely on the elite soldiers of the Italian Black Bands and his personal protectors, the 189-man-strong Swiss Guard.
Wow.
Swiss mercenaries were extraordinarily good soldiers and highly valued all across Europe. But while the defenders were busy pouring boiling liquid onto the massive attackers, a dense fog suddenly fell. It became so thick that the men could barely see each other. And the defenders on the walls were firing blindly. Realizing his chance, Bourbon ran forward, holding one of the ladders himself and urging his troops onward. But he was hit and killed instantly. News of his death spread rapidly, and the initial confusion in the ranks of the attackers turned into a lust for revenge for killing their leader and, more importantly, their paymaster. The Imperials surged forward, and their numbers overwhelmed the defenders. With the gates then thrown open for the rest of the Imperials, the defense of Rome collapsed.
Wow.
The invaders swarmed over the city, and with Bourbon dead, there was no authority to even try to restrain them, if that was even possible by this point. The Black Bands were routed, while the Swiss Guard gathered at the obelisk in front of St. Peter's, readying themselves for a last stand near the Teutonic Cemetery. It was their duty to fight and die for the Pope's safety. And so they did. Armed with halberds and swords in their hands and faith in their hearts, they waited for the final battle on the steps of St. Peter's. Stand firm, therefore, having girded your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, in addition to all, taking up the shield of faith.
So true, man. That is
Not
tough.
that much is known about the actual fighting, Heavily outnumbered, they stood true to their vows and formed a defensive wall of halberds in front of St. Peter's. In a fight they could not hope to win, the men of the Swiss Guard were gradually overwhelmed and slaughtered. Still, their sacrifice gave the Pope enough time to escape through a secret passage. Accompanied by 42 survivors of the 189, they ran across the Passetto di Borgo up to the Castel Sant'Angelo. More and more of the guard died along the way, fending off the pursuing Imperials. The last few still standing made it into the Castello with the Pope, and then they could fire heavy artillery and falconets into the mass of attackers, preventing the Castello from being overwhelmed.
Wow.
The Pope and those closest to him were safe, thanks to the sacrifice of the Swiss Guard.
Makes sense. Makes sense. 189 soldiers doing stuff like that. You know, it kind of reminds me a little bit about the 300 in similar setup where they're defending the pass towards the oncoming invaders. You know, kind of similar setup. But anyways, the last stand, 1527, sack of Rome, Sabaton history. Be sure to stay tuned because guess what? The Last Stand, the song is coming right after this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this. Like I said, I enjoyed doing this beforehand. Really enjoyed that I'm able to learn and also listen to some good music. And to get some context before the song just makes it that much better. And really, really cool that Sabaton does this. So be sure to subscribe. And as always, stay healthy, stay happy, and have a blessed day. Peace.